Entering the office, I punched the time card and heard the boss say, "Work's done for today." At that moment, I felt a sudden warmth on my back as the boss wrapped her arms around me from behind. I was caught off guard and completely frozen. "Thank you so much for today," she said. My heart raced. "My name is Mike. I'm 30 years old. I appreciate all of this," I stammered, feeling awkward. I also reminded myself that working at a logistics company where I mainly handle deliveries means I rarely prepare for anything before heading out. I couldn't afford any slip-ups, especially today. "Hey Mike, are you still not ready?" Miss Taylor, the boss, called out to me. She was supposed to accompany me today. We had a meeting scheduled at the inn where we're making a delivery. Normally, she works alone, but our schedules aligned, and she decided to join me in the delivery van. I quickly checked the contents of my bag. All right, this should be good. Did I forget anything? I've always been someone who can't relax unless I'm thoroughly prepared. I recalled packing for a school trip with my mom, who's just as meticulous as I am. We ended up with 2 large bags, much to my dad's displeasure. What if it gets cold suddenly? What if I get sick? Headache, stomachache, fever? The possibilities are endless. Lost in my thoughts, I was jolted when Miss Taylor zipped up my bag. "Ah!" I gulped, and she gave me a sharp look. Even her disapproving gaze was somehow charming. Miss Taylor, who is 2 years older than me, is exceptionally beautiful. Her eyes, slightly upturned and double-lidded, are strikingly made up. She has a sharp jawline and thin lips, and her figure is impressive. Aware of her beauty, she wears a suit that elegantly accentuates her physique. As she scowls at me, she attempts to lift my bag and exclaims, "Heavy, what on earth are you carrying? We're not staying overnight. The inn is just an hour away. Why so much stuff?" Her tone is sharp, sending my thoughts into a whirl. "Well, there's a snow forecast for today, and the inn is up in the mountains, so it's going to be cold," I try to explain slowly. Before I can finish, Miss Taylor interrupts. "Even so, the car is heated, and the parking lot is close to the entrance. Whether it's cold or snowing doesn't matter." With that, she turned on her heel and briskly walked away. "Come on, we need to go, or we'll run out of time." Heeding her words, I hastily shouldered my bag and followed her. I was relieved I'd already checked the car and warmed up the engine. Miss Taylor quickly settled into the passenger seat, crossing her arms and legs as if to urge me to hurry. I jumped into the driver's seat and pressed the accelerator. This was just a drive with a beautiful boss. Trying to suppress my excitement, I concentrated on driving safely. "Should I fill up the gas tank on the way?" I asked. Miss Taylor, clearly annoyed by the question, glanced at the gas meter before responding. "Let's do it on the way back. There's enough left." With that, she made a swift decision and turned her attention forward. Before I could say anything more, she cut me off. "We're already running late because of your slow preparation. The innkeeper is a busy person, and I don't want to be late." There was nothing I could say in response. The gas was indeed sufficient for a round trip, but I didn't want to add to Miss Taylor's stress. I nodded and focused on driving. As we drove further into the mountains, the houses became increasingly sparse. The inn, which gained popularity after being featured on TV, is known for its secluded spa. My job is to deliver freshly cleaned sheets and covers and collect the used ones. Usually, I handle deliveries to various inns and hotels, but today it's just this one. Since Miss Taylor is accompanying me, another employee is taking care of the other deliveries. Although Miss Taylor suggested I could relax at the spa while she attended her meeting, I plan to read in the lobby. Taking time to enjoy the spa during work hours, even with her permission, doesn't feel right to me. The road to the inn narrows significantly halfway through, making it nearly impossible for 2 cars to pass each other. Since the inn is situated at the end of this narrow road, and because check-in and check-out times vary, we suppliers avoid peak travel times to minimize encounters with other vehicles. As we approach the single-lane section, the snow begins to fall more heavily, causing the car in front of us to slow down. Miss Taylor's anxiety rises as we find ourselves unable to overtake the vehicle ahead. I maintain a safe distance and follow quietly. "What's going on?" Miss Taylor asks as the car in front suddenly comes to a complete stop. It turns out there's a line of cars ahead, a traffic jam in this remote area. We hadn't anticipated this. It seems the car at the front is stuck, causing a ripple effect with the vehicles behind. I quickly contact the inn to update them on the situation. They were unaware of the delay but assured me they would look into it immediately. They understood the circumstances and were accommodating about our delay. I relayed this information to Miss Taylor, who remained tense and focused on the road. What a day for this to happen, she muttered. Today's meeting is crucial for securing future contracts, including a sales pitch for a new product she's eager to launch. This product, which she's passionately developed, is intended for a long-time client, and Miss Taylor is determined to make a strong impression. I reached into my bag and pulled out a thermos. Pouring its contents into a paper cup I keep handy, I offered it to Miss Taylor. Let's stay calm. The innkeeper is aware of our situation and is concerned about us. This is herbal tea. Please have some. Miss Taylor's eyes widened in surprise. You have this in your bag? She asked. I nodded. When I'm driving alone, I sometimes get a bit anxious. Herbal tea helps me stay calm better than coffee, I explained with a smile. Miss Taylor laughed softly. With your build, isn't that a bit too feminine? She teased. I just scratched my head. Having played rugby since I was young, I'm quite well built, especially with broad shoulders that can make narrow cars feel cramped for others. Thankfully, today's car is spacious, allowing Miss Taylor to relax and enjoy the tea. It's good, she said, and it seemed to calm her nerves a bit. I had hoped we would start moving soon, but progress was still stalled. The situation was becoming quite serious. 30 minutes after stopping, I began to grasp the gravity of our predicament. The snow continued to fall heavily, and I was increasingly concerned about keeping the engine running due to the risk of carbon monoxide poisoning. In retrospect, we should have filled up earlier. Miss Taylor seemed to have the same thought. Maybe we should turn off the engine for a bit. I wonder how long the gas will last. We should have filled up earlier. Sorry. Seeing her anxious expression, I offered a reassuring smile. It's all right. As I spoke, I pulled out a blanket and some hand warmers from my bag, surprising Miss Taylor once more. For now, please use these, Miss Taylor. I'm going to clear the snow from the car's exhaust pipe. With that, I stepped out into the cold air, which bit at my skin. The lack of wind was a small relief, but it also meant the snow was accumulating quickly. I began shoveling snow away from the exhaust pipe using a shovel I had brought along. A man from the car behind asked to borrow the shovel, suggesting that staying active might help me stay warmer. I agreed and also lightly cleared snow from around the nearby cars. Returning to the car, I found Miss Taylor looking surprised again. You had a shovel too. Who are you really? She asked. I chuckled and replied, I'm just naturally cautious and like to be prepared. Something similar happened to me a few years back when I was stuck in a similar situation with a friend. My friend had no emergency supplies, so we had to rely on my emergency food and blankets. It was a tough experience. Since then, I've always kept various items in my car, especially during winter, just in case we get stuck in the snow. Miss Taylor sighed. Sorry, Mike. I didn't realize you had such good reasons for all the preparation. I was rushing you and making fun of it. Her voice was muffled as she buried her face in the blanket. No need to apologize, I said with a reassuring smile. It's best when nothing goes wrong, but I know I tend to over-prepare for just-in-case situations. Sometimes I even feel like I'm wasting time. I want to lighten the mood, so I added, at least now we're both warm and ready. Who knows, maybe we'll have a story to tell once we finally get there. I rummaged through my bag and pulled out a chocolate bar. This time, my over-preparation is actually coming in handy, and that makes me happy, I said as I offered it to her. Miss Taylor looked up quietly, taking the chocolate and breaking a piece off with her thin lips. She sighed again. I'm so useless, aren't I? I came here in light clothing, thinking it wouldn't be cold, and now I'm using your blanket. In situations like this, I can't do anything. What's wrong with me? I was taken aback. What are you talking about? You've successfully taken over the company and excelled in sales. You're efficient and capable, I said. Miss Taylor gave a sad smile. You're kind, but what's the use of being good at work if I'm like this? At work, I'm always tense and not very endearing. Here I am, just drinking your herbal tea, wrapped in your blanket, and eating chocolate while you're offering me everything and even shoveling snow from other cars. I feel the difference in our human capabilities. I feel so useless. Seeing her unusual dejection made me worry. This was so different from her usual self. I decided to share a memory I had been hesitant to talk about. Miss Taylor, you're not useless at all, I said. She looked at me with a rare smile. You don't have to cheer me up, she said softly. I looked straight at her and continued. Actually, you've helped me before. Her eyes widened in surprise. It was about 5 years ago, I began. I was at a stadium watching a soccer match. The real joy for me was the food. Hot dogs, pizza, fried chicken. I always had a hot dog. It was bitterly cold in the stadium during winter, and I was wearing a down jacket that my father had given me as an employment gift. I sat down, took a big bite of my hot dog, and then, I exclaimed. The hot dog fell onto my jacket. I panicked at the thought of staining the expensive down jacket my father had given me. I fumbled through my bag and pulled out a towel. Just then, a sharp female voice cut through my distress. "Wait," she called out. I froze as she snatched the towel from my hand and gave me a stern look. "Don't rub it with that, you'll make the stain permanent." She was stunningly beautiful, and her commanding presence left me in awe. Without acknowledging my stunned gaze, she took out a handkerchief and gently wiped away the ketchup and mustard. Then she dampened the other side of the handkerchief with a little water from her thermos. "This is plain hot water," she explained. Hot water at a stadium seemed remarkable to me. She must be a very thoughtful person. "You don't scrub stains," she said, pressing the handkerchief against the stained area. "You transfer them onto a damp cloth or dish like this." "Oh, well, now your handkerchief will get dirty," I said in a panic. She chuckled. "That's exactly what I hoped you'd realize. This handkerchief is ordinary, but your down jacket is special, right?" She turned my jacket inside out to check the tag. "I thought so. Make sure you take it to the cleaners when you get home. It's a special jacket to you, isn't it?" Her smile made my heart flutter. We didn't talk much after that. The game ended in a 0-0 draw, so there weren't many exciting moments, and I spent the break sneaking glances at her, captivated and unable to focus on the game. Finishing my story, I said, "So you see, Miss Taylor, you're not useless. I think you help people without even realizing it. Like you did back then, you made a lasting impression without even knowing it." Miss Taylor seemed a bit embarrassed but joked. "True, something like that did happen. But I remember you were so large, you were spilling into my seat." I was momentarily at a loss for words. Back then, I was in an office job that didn't suit me, snacking constantly and eating fried foods to cope with stress. I was at my heaviest, and my rugby player build made me quite large. "Sorry for invading your space," Miss Taylor said, chuckling. "But you remembered all this time. Did you recognize me at the job interview?" I nodded, admitting that I remembered her from the moment I saw her. I was embarrassed to say out loud how I had been captivated by a beautiful, efficient woman dealing with a stain. I was truly shocked when she appeared at the interview. The face I had awkwardly remembered for 5 years was suddenly right in front of me. I was already bad with words, and my nervousness made the interview a disaster. I was sure I wouldn't be hired, so the offer came as a huge surprise. Curiosity got the better of me, and I asked, "Why did you hire me? I was so nervous in front of you. I thought I did terribly." Miss Taylor smiled at my question. "You look strong." My face turned as red as a boiled lobster. This job can be quite tough. Even those who are confident in their physical strength sometimes find it overwhelming and quit. "But you seem like you could handle it." Her words, meant as encouragement, had me blushing deeply. I glanced at the clock. It had been an hour since we'd been stuck. But Miss Taylor's compliment gave me a boost of courage. "I'll go check out the front," I said. Miss Taylor quickly grabbed my down jacket, the same one she had helped me with years ago, and which I still treasured. "You don't even know where the front of the line is, and it's still snowing. Maybe we should just wait here." Miss Taylor's lips had lost their color despite her lipstick. I wanted to get her to a warm place quickly. "There are plenty of hand warmers in here. Please use them. There's also more tea in the thermos," I said, showing her the supplies in my bag. As I was explaining, Miss Taylor grabbed my chest area. "Don't go," she said, her voice trembling with anxiety. It stirred my heart. "I want to be of help to you, Miss Taylor. If it seems impossible, I'll come right back." With that, I took the shovel and stepped outside. The road narrowed to a single lane and extended over 4 miles. We were stranded about 1.2 miles in, so the front of the line should be no more than 3 miles away. Since the inn wasn't aware of the situation, the jam likely began just ahead of us. Braving the accumulating snow, I trudged up the mountain path, bolstered by the thought of Miss Taylor's smile. Fortunately, I found the lead car not too far ahead. The vehicle had slipped sideways across the road and was stuck in a ditch. The occupants looked exhausted. They explained that the road shoulder was covered in snow, and their car had slid off and become trapped. Despite their efforts and those of people from the cars behind, they hadn't managed to free the vehicle. The roadblock was causing a complete standstill. I approached some of the bystanders who looked like they could help. They mentioned that pushing hadn't worked, so I suggested lifting the car. Confident in my strength, I rallied a few volunteers who seemed hopeful. We cleared the surrounding snow with shovels and coordinated our efforts to lift the heavy vehicle. It was tough, but we managed to make some progress. With more force and better coordination, we finally managed to lift the car enough for the wheels to come out of the ditch. Cheers and applause followed. Eager to get back to Miss Taylor, I compacted the snow as I hurried back to the car. When I returned, Miss Taylor's face lit up with relief. Seeing her so genuinely relieved made my heart flutter. As I recounted the events, Miss Taylor looked at me with moist eyes and said, "That's incredible," while caressing my arm through the down jacket. My heart raced at her touch. The quiet in the car felt intimate, and I considered confessing my feelings, telling her I had admired her since the day she helped me with my jacket. But just then, the car ahead started its engine and began to move. The traffic jam was clearing. The car started moving again as Miss Taylor's words brought me back to reality. I took a deep breath and focused on driving up the mountain road. The confession would have to wait for another time. The priority now was getting us to the inn. When we arrived at the inn, many people in the lobby looked relieved, seeking warmth from the stoves the staff had set up. The innkeeper and staff were working hard to manage the situation, and Miss Taylor, deciding to help me with the delivery, commented on her past experience with deliveries when her father was in charge. Her efficiency was impressive, and I found myself admiring her even more. While working, word spread about my efforts in clearing the roadblock. The innkeeper approached me with heartfelt gratitude, offering a free stay voucher as a token of appreciation. "We couldn't have managed it ourselves. You were a great help. Please use this voucher with someone special," she said with a grin, glancing at Miss Taylor. Miss Taylor, seemingly oblivious to the innkeeper's hint, just smiled at me and said, "That's nice." The voucher was a generous gesture, and I was touched by the innkeeper's kindness. As we finished up, I couldn't help but feel a sense of accomplishment and a growing warmth for Miss Taylor. As I drove back, I realized that if I wanted any progress with Miss Taylor, I had to let her know how I felt. My heart was racing with anticipation, but I wasn't sure how or when to bring it up. Summoning my courage, I decided to start with something simple. Are you hungry? Maybe we could," I began, but Miss Taylor interrupted me. "We're still on duty. We need to stay focused until we reach the office," she said matter-of-factly. Her bluntness caused my courage to deflate instantly. The moment I had planned for seemed to slip away, and the rest of the ride was spent in silence as we made our way back. After refueling and arriving at the office, I punched out. "Work's done for today," Miss Taylor announced. As I turned, I felt her arm gently wrap around my back, reaching from my shoulder to my waist. I froze, feeling her warmth and closeness. "Thank you so much for today. How about we go for dinner later?" she asked, her voice soft. My heart raced even faster. I stammered, struggling to find the right words. I noticed her grip tighten slightly. "You're really big. I have to hold on tight or it feels like I'll let go," she said, a teasing note in her voice. The down jacket might have exaggerated my size, but that wasn't important right now. I was confused, my thoughts swirling as I tried to make sense of what her touch and words meant. Your hand. It seems like it needed a moment to calm down." I started, but as I spoke, Miss Taylor's voice sounded a bit sad, and her grip loosened. "Is this bothering you?" Surprised by her reaction, I quickly took both of her hands in mine. Hearing her soft gasp, I decided it was now or never. I couldn't see her face clearly, but maybe that was for the best. "I like you," I blurted out, my voice echoing in the quiet, empty office. "Ha!" Miss Taylor's puzzled response left me unsure of her feelings. I took a deep breath and poured out everything I had been holding back. "I'm sorry. Ever since you've helped with my down jacket at the stadium, I've been captivated by you. That's why I recognized you right away during the interview. Watching you work, seeing how efficiently you handle things, only made my feelings grow stronger. Even when I saw you look worried working late, it made my heart ache that I couldn't do more for you. Today, did I manage to be of any help?" A brief silence followed. "Yes, you really helped, and you were very reliable." Miss Taylor's voice was gentle from behind me, but there was an undertone that made me shiver slightly. "Next time, take me with you. I'll make sure I'm properly dressed for the cold." I released her hands and stepped back, turning to face her directly. "Does that mean—" I began, but before I could finish, Miss Taylor pursed her lips. "I didn't like waiting alone. It seems patience isn't exactly my strong suit." With that, she stood on her tiptoes and kissed my cheek. I pulled her into a tight embrace, holding her slender frame close. A year has passed since that moment, and today is our wedding day. Emily, radiant in a pure white gown, appeared before me like a vision. Months after the snow incident, we used the free stay voucher at the inn. When the innkeeper saw us together in the lobby, she greeted us with a knowing smile. "It blossomed into something beautiful," she murmured, having observed our connection and quickly realized my feelings for Emily. Embarrassed by her comment, she leaned in and whispered something else in my ear. Emily gazed at me with love. Initially, I felt anxious about our relationship. I wondered if our bond was merely a result of the suspension bridge effect. Would her feelings for me change once the initial excitement wore off? Despite these fears, I continued our relationship feeling like I was walking on eggshells. When I proposed, Emily accepted joyfully, but I couldn't help but confess my worries. She laughed and waved away my concerns. "Is that what you were thinking? How silly. Maybe it's my fault for not saying this sooner." She pursed her lips, a habit she had when struggling to express something. "I've always been drawn to strong men. During the interview, I thought you were quite handsome," she admitted, making me blush with embarrassment. "Of course, I hired you because I knew you'd excel at the job," Emily said, taking my hand. "But I also admired your dedication. You were always so thorough and serious, which made me worry a bit since I can be quite impatient. Yet with you, I feel like I can finally slow down and enjoy life. I love the tranquility I experience when we're together. So please, will you make me your wife?" Her words dispelled all my doubts, and as I approach our wedding day, I feel at peace. The weight of running the company had been a heavy one for Emily, especially after her father's sudden passing, which left her with no time to grieve while taking on the mantle of responsibility. I am determined to be the one to lighten her load. As I gaze up at the clear sky visible from the chapel, I vow to make Emily's happiness my top priority.